Hi everyone, welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith. In this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 6 player game, Scoville by Tasty Minstrel Games. In 1912, Wilbur Scoville created the test to determine the hotness of a pepper. And since that time, people have been trying to grow peppers that reach the heights of that scale. And so it is that you are a pepper farmer in the fictional town of Scoville, where you'll be working to breed peppers of near intolerable hotness in order to win the trophy at the local annual festival. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. The game board comes in 4 puzzle pieces that you click together, and it should look like this when you're finished. This area of the board is the farmer's market, and these are the morning and afternoon market decks. Shuffle them each separately and then place the afternoon deck here on the game board. Now you will draw a number of cards from the morning deck based on the number of players in this chart shown here. For example, we're setting up a 2-player game, so we would need to put out 7 morning market cards, which I've done here. The rest of the morning deck you can now return to the box. By the auction house area of the board, shuffle and place face down the morning and afternoon auction house decks. And then draw from the morning deck a number of cards equal to the number of players, filling them in from left to right in these spaces here. So in a 2-player game, you're only going to use the first 2 spaces. Over here at the chili cook-off, you shuffle the recipe cards, and then based on this chart, you draw a number of cards to place face up based on the number of players. So in a 2-player game, we'll put out 8 recipes. It's recommended that you overlap the recipes like this to save space, and I suggest organizing them in order from lowest to highest based on the number found in the top right-hand corner. Any remaining recipes, you can now return to the box. Over at City Hall, sort the various plaques by color and place them on their matching spaces. Also sort them by value, with the lowest on the bottom and the highest on top. In a 2 or 3-player game, these icons remind us that you remove 1, the highest value, from each stack of the award plaques. So in our 2-player game, it would look like this. The game comes with several copies of each of the 10 different types of peppers, as well as coins in denominations of 1, 5, and 10. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to organize them into these glass jars, which are not included with the game. Now each player collects a disc and farmer in their chosen color, and coins totaling a value of 10. Along with a red, yellow, and blue pepper, and the 3 unique bonus action tiles. You also collect a player screen in your color, and it reminds you on the other side of these starting items, which you hide behind the screen, along with any other coins or peppers that you collect during the game. Now have a player take an additional blue, red, and yellow pepper. They shake those up in their hand, and then randomly draw 2 to place in the 2 green pepper starting spaces on either side of this yellow star. The remaining pepper can be returned to the supply. Now have a player take each person's disc, shuffle those up as well, and then randomly place them from left to right on the turn order track. The remaining spaces on the turn order track will not be used, so you can fill them with coins if you'd like, as a reminder. Each player can also take or share one of the 4 breeding charts. And that's the setup. In Scoville, players will be planting peppers in a shared garden, and then breeding hotter and more valuable peppers, which they'll race to collect in order to satisfy the needs of the market, to complete chili recipes, and go to City Hall and collect awards, all of which will provide you with the victory points necessary to win. The game is played over a series of rounds, and each round is broken into 5 phases, starting with the auction phase. The first step of each auction phase is to determine the turn order. But at the beginning of the game, this has already been done randomly, so you skip this step. In future rounds, you'll first slide all of the turn order markers up into the faint circles to retain the previous turn order. Now each player bids on the turn order by secretly putting any number of their coins from behind their screen into a closed hand. Let's pretend this is the blue player and this is the yellow player. Once all the players are ready, they reveal their bids, and you can see it's even possible to bid no coins. But the player who bid the most coins, they first get to move their turn order marker into any empty space on the turn order track. Now you can see I moved into position 2 here instead of position 1. And that's because, depending on the phase, the turn order is either resolved in ascending order or descending order. So depending on what you want to do, it's sometimes advantageous to be in a later position. The next highest bidder does the same, and so on. Now, in the case of a tie, in a bid greater than 0, the player who acted earlier in the previous round wins the tie. And that's why we preserve the turn order by moving our tokens up to these spaces at the beginning of the auction phase. Now, if you bid 0, then after all of the other bidders have resolved their choices, the players who bid 0 go into the first available slots, lowest to highest, based on the previous turn order. So in this case, it's pretty simple. There's only one player left. They're going to go into this position. So if we did have 3 players, and these 2 players had bid 0, yellow would go into this position, and green would go into this position. Now remember, in the first round of the game, you skipped that step of the auction phase, so we'll put this back the way it was. But either way, now following the turn order, players will choose one of the face-up morning auction cards. So blue might pick this one. You then discard the card, but collect the pepper shown there and place it behind your screen. Yellow, of course, will have no option but to take this one, which will provide the yellow player with 2 red peppers, which they will also place behind their screen. After all the players have collected their new peppers, the auction house is refilled using the cards in the morning deck. If the deck has run out, shuffle the discards to form a new deck. Something to note, the first several rounds of the game will take place in the morning. Later, we'll see how the game shifts into the afternoon, at which point you will refill the auction house from the afternoon deck. Next, it's the planting phase. In ascending turn order, which we're reminded of right here, each player will choose 1 pepper from behind their screen to plant in an empty space horizontally or vertically adjacent to any other pepper already in the garden. Now, if a player has just planted a pepper that is showing on one of the plaques in City Hall, they may immediately collect the most valuable of those plaques. Each one will be worth the number of victory points shown here. I would like to mention this plaque, which shows 3 different colored peppers, purple, orange, and green, can be earned if you plant any one of those peppers during this phase. So the blue player who just planted this purple pepper could collect this plaque, which will be worth 2 points. The yellow player will now plant this yellow pepper. That doesn't match any of the plaques, so they won't collect anything. A little later, we'll learn how, through the use of one of the bonus action tiles, it's possible to plant more than 1 pepper during a single turn, but you cannot earn more than 1 plaque during that turn. Also, you can earn the same plaque more than once, as long as you're doing it in different rounds. All right, now it's time for the harvesting phase. Each player in reverse turn order, as we're reminded here once again on the turn order track, must now move their farmer from 1 to 3 steps along the plot paths. In the first round, you start by placing your farmer on the star, and the farmer can face in either direction, and you move from there. In future turns, you will move from where you stopped the previous harvest phase. The farmers move between the square plots of the garden. A single step is moving your farmer from one of these notches to any connected notch. At the start of your movement, you may choose to rotate the facing of your farmer, but once you start moving, you may not turn around between steps. So oftentimes, like right now with the yellow farmer, you're going to have 3 options of where you can go to start out with. Over to this notch, or straight ahead. However, you cannot move through or stop on another farmer's notch. Each time one of your steps puts you between 2 planted peppers, you collect a pepper from the supply based on the breeding chart. Doing this does not remove any peppers from the garden. The chart is very easy to use. The yellow player is between a yellow and blue pepper. So if we find the yellow pepper on the row, we can then look for the blue pepper in the column, and where they cross, that is the pepper you'll breed. So the yellow player collects a green pepper and puts it behind their screen. Most spots will give you at least 1 pepper, some will give you 2, and a few of them will give you no peppers at all. Likewise, if you take a step that has an empty plot on one or both sides, you won't get to collect any peppers. And remember, although you must move at least 1 space, you don't have to move all 3. So the blue player could go here, collect a green pepper, and then stop. And you might do this to block other players. Now, the yellow player, assuming the turn order remained the same, would not be able to move between this yellow and blue pepper. Next is the fulfillment phase, and this is completed in ascending order, which once again, we're reminded of right here on the turn order track. When it's your turn during the fulfillment phase, you can do any or all of the following 3 actions, and you can do them in any order, but you can only do one of each. One action is to visit the farmer's market by choosing one of the cards and then paying to the supply peppers from behind your screen that match what is shown on the left side. You then get to collect the reward on this side of the card. So, for example, if I was to give a blue and a green pepper back to the supply, I would collect a brown pepper, 3 coin, and then I would take this market card because at the end of the game, it's going to be worth 1 victory point. You can also compete at the chili cook-off by paying to the supply the combination of peppers shown in one of the recipes. For example, for Chuck's breakfast, I'd need to pay these peppers. I then collect the recipe and place it behind my screen. At the end of the game, it's going to be worth this number of victory points. And lastly, you can sell a batch of peppers from behind your screen. A batch is 1 to 5 peppers of the same color. So here I have a batch of 4 red peppers. You then gain $1 for every 2 of that colored pepper currently planted in the fields. So right now there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red peppers. You don't count any remainders, so that means I would get a total of $2 per red pepper, and since I had 4 red peppers, that's $8. The final phase is the time check. And if it's still the morning, remember the game starts in the morning, so certainly at the end of the first round, this is still going to be true. You need to check and see if the number of face-up chili recipes is less than the number of players. So in a 2-player game, if there was only 1 or no recipes left, then you play 1 more round up to and including the fulfillment phase, and then the game is over and you score, which means you never actually had an afternoon. That's not as likely to happen. In the more common case, where there's going to be at least as many chili recipes as the number of players, you'll go to the farmer's market and see how many cards remain there. If there are at least as many market cards in the farmer's market as there are players, then you start a new round and it remains the morning. So you will continue to use the morning auction cards when you're replenishing the auction area. However, if there are fewer cards in the market than players, so in a 2-player game, if there is only 1 or no market cards left, you discard any remaining morning market cards and then draw a new amount based on the chart from the afternoon deck, which tells us that in a 2-player game, we would again need 7 cards in our market. This also means that during the auction phase, when you're replenishing cards to the auction house, you will now use the afternoon cards. Leave any morning auction cards that are still there, but the rest of the morning cards can be returned to the box. These will be returned to the box once they're collected. All of the remaining afternoon market cards can also be returned to the box. And now you would start a new round of play. If you come to the time check phase and it's already afternoon, then you count the remaining market and chili recipe cards. If there are at least as many cards in each location as the number of players, then you just start a new round as normal. However, if any one of those locations has less cards than the number of players, you play only 1 more round up to and including the fulfillment phase. But if there were fewer cards than players in both locations, then the game ends immediately. Once the game is ended, each player totals their points, which includes all those found on your recipe and market cards, plaques, and unused bonus action tiles. You also gain 1 point for every $3 you have ignoring remainders. So in this case, I'd get 10 points for my recipes, a total of 5 points for my market, 2 points from this plaque, 4 points from this unused action tile, assuming that I used both of these during the game. And then with my 7 coins, I would get a total of 2 points. 1 point for each 3 coins I have, ignoring any leftovers. Whoever has the most points wins. And if there's a tie, the tied player with the most money wins. Now, I know what you're thinking. Rodney, you never told us what those bonus action tiles are for. You're right, so let's talk about these now. On your turn, you can use one or more of these bonus actions, and you do that by simply revealing them from behind your screen, and once they're used, they can't be used again. It's recommended that you place them in front of your screen, and that way people know which bonus actions you've used already. Each of them has a special effect. Let's go over those now. This tile lets you plant an extra pepper. So during the planting phase, if I had planted a black pepper, I could then use that tile to also plant a white pepper. But remember, you can only collect one plaque per turn. So if I had taken this plaque after planting the black pepper, I would then not also be able to collect this plaque for having planted the white pepper. However, you can forgo collecting a plaque when planting your first pepper to take the plaque matching the second one. So if I had skipped picking up this one, I could grab this plaque once I had placed the white pepper. This tile lets you move one extra step during the harvest phase. This is very useful if you can't quite get where you want to go using your regular 3 steps. Let's say the blue player used this bonus tile. Remember, before moving, you have one chance to change the orientation of your farmer. So let's say we turned around and then went this step between a purple and red pepper. That would give us one brown pepper. That's not so exciting. Then we move another step between a white and purple pepper. That gives us a purple pepper. Okay, it's better. Now our third step takes us between a black and white pepper, and that gives you the elusive phantom pepper. And with our bonus action, we can move between another black and white pepper and get a second phantom pepper. Finally, during the harvest step, you may also use this bonus action to turn around once after you've already started your steps. We know how much the blue farmer likes phantom peppers. So after moving one step, using this ability, the farmer can double back and turn around. Now, using the second step, the farmer will go here between a black and white pepper, giving them that elusive phantom pepper, and then with the final third step, go between another black and white pepper to get a second phantom pepper. And that's everything you need to know to play Scoville. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. But until the next episode, thanks for watching.